Yes, I'm a king, go I think I'm a king, go
We use history as a guide to victory in order to avoid making the same mistakes as our predecessors who have betrayed the revolution as power and access to privilege overwhelmed them. We are here because victory loves preparations, but it is equally our revolutionary responsibility to equally plan for the day after our victory. What do we do the day after we win? Where do we begin? And where do we intend to take our nation, our continent, and our people? We need you to guide the organization on how we'll confront the historical enemy, which has taken a decision to locate the EFF as enemy number one in our society. We have called upon you to seize the moment, a moment that we have defined as our own 1994. It is our 1994 because it is an opportunity to usher in the freedoms our people have been denied since the so-called democracy was ushered in. It is a moment that we are calling upon you to seize because you are faced with an opportunity to fulfill the dreams of economic freedom that were betrayed in 1994 and have led to the misery and poverty of our people today. We have invited you to the battlefield as soldiers of dreams that were denied in 1994, and your task now is to make those dreams a reality in 2024. In 2024, history calls upon you to make the dreams of the return of the land, the return of our mineral wealth, the provision of free, decolonized education, housing, and primary health care a reality. You must make South Africa a safe place and fight criminals fire with fire so that our people live in peace. We must draw lessons from not only our ideological pillars on the need to be deliberate in our planning, but also we must be deliberate in the political education and development of the soldiers of our movement, because it is these soldiers who will carry the baton of governance. We must draw lessons from the unpreparedness of those who came before us, from the poverty of development from within the former liberation movement of Africa, and it is this lesson that will make us a viable post-colonial alternative. It is this unpreparedness that has made Africa a perpetual victim of the West and has allowed imperialism to render us as a conquered people upon whose backs the world stands. It is the unpreparedness by the post-liberation movement of Africa to preside over the means of production and to chart a sustainable political and social and economic way forward that has led our nation to degenerate war, poverty, corruption, and starvation. The unpreparedness of those who led the battle for political freedom in Africa has led to a self-compromise and dependency on those who conquered us. And as a result, we have never escaped the hands of colonialism and imperialism. It is the lack of the planning for the day after victory that leads to an infertile, underdevelopment class of politicians assuming political power, but not knowing what to do with that power after day of victory. The Party of Liberation in South Africa is falling apart. And as it falls apart, we are able to see that it was never prepared for the day after victory. The so-called liberators of South Africa continue to prove their unpreparedness in all spheres of society, a society which is today in a state of collapse. The so-called liberators prove their unpreparedness when a building burns in the city of Johannesburg, a building that they have allowed to collapse, degenerate, and succumb to hijack, and they turn around and blame apartheid and foreign nationals. The so-called liberators of our country were not prepared for the day after victory because they had no political will or intention to reverse the cardinal sin of land theft and the monopolization of our minerals by a white minority. We must never make the mistake of winning the battle and then, because we never prepared for victory, our role becomes to constantly remind our people of the battles we have won in the past. Lindiwe Sisulu is the most uneducated and foolish minister you can think of. Every time she opens her mouth, instead of telling people about what she's doing, she's consistently reminding them of how she fought in the bush and how they liberated us, creating an impression that we owe her and her colleagues something. We owe them nothing. No one sent them to the bush. They went because they wanted to go to challenge the material condition at the time. And therefore, they must never behave like we owe them anything. We don't owe them anything. We have actually honored them by electing them in 1994. For 30 years, we have been thanking them, and 30 years is enough to thank those who have liberated us. Let your work speak for you and not what you did in the past. We need leaders who will be guided by superior logic and always answer questions with decisiveness and educated answers. It is people who are trained politically and at the level of scholarship on the ethos and consciousness of economic freedom who must lead South African society so that we do not find ourselves appointing right-wingers to preside over the affairs of a socialist state. It is the duty of the EFF to expose that the philosophies of the conqueror and the conquered cannot coexist. It will be our job to ensure that this does not happen at the level of the state. I'm speaking to you here, not worried about what is going to happen on the election day. What worries me is the day after the election day, because for me, I'm preparing for a victory day, not for the day of the elections. Comrades, we were harsh with those who failed to organize transport for their constituencies to come to the EFF 10th anniversary rally, because that was a clear indication that they will not be able to rise to the occasion of 2024. And to keep them amongst us will be tantamount to a betrayal of our people. The battlefield for 2024 will be unforgiving, and as a result, the EFF has to be unforgiving to those who do not have a political and ideological appreciation of the instruction we gave them. We stand here today knowing how many soldiers we have and what they can do. We stand here and declare better few than many who will make us plan with numbers that we do not have in reality and lead us into an ambush. We are here today strictly with dependable forces of the revolution. It is our duty to not fall into the campaign tactics and tricks of those who seek to divide African people in order to secure a vote. It is our collective duty to constantly conduct political and ideological competitor analysis and counter information so that we can always undermine distortions by our enemies who seek to win of the divisions of Africans. The ruling party in South Africa, after having tested the ground through various proxies and puppets on the ground, has taken a deliberate decision that it will suddenly blame the social ills of our country on illegal immigrants. The very same ruling party that has African in its name has adopted as an election strategy that it will attribute its failures to African people. And it does so to take advantage of our people and distract them from the fact that they have failed. They do this out of desperation, and part of their strategy, most recently, is to invoke apartheid as a reason for their 3 decades of failure to change the lives of black people in South Africa. It is the EFF that has long warned of the suspicious role of the NGOs in our country, which are funded by the likes of George Soros and have been an ally to various factions of the ANC since the dawn of democracy. Now, because it suits them, they have betrayed their NGO allies who have never held them accountable for issues such as the sealing of the CR17 documents, the Pala farm saga, and the overall failing presidency of Cyril Ramaphosa. They are now able to blame NGOs because it suits their agenda. The ruling party in South Africa is attempting to play a delicate balance between being proud to have governed since 1994, while at the same time being so ashamed of its failures that they depict themselves as victims of the system. The EFF must be able to articulate that the domestic conditions of South Africa of collapsing infrastructure, lack of electricity, lack of water, lack of housing, and the rising cost of living must be blamed on the ruling party that was never prepared to govern in the first place. Ask some of us, we find comfort by living amongst communities. We may stay in the suburbs, but we spend most of our time changing the lives of those who were told by their neighbors, their siblings and cousins, that there will never be anything in society. We enjoy giving our people back their dignity and their lives. That's what we have done for the past 5 years. That's what we'll continue to do for the next decade, because it is our job. We are not here to impress celebrities. We don't exist for television. We exist for those who are neglected and rejected masses of our people in the informal settlements, in the villages, in the townships, in the factories. All of those people are our friends. When you saw that stadium, they knew that they are going to the festival of their own, because this movement belongs to them and no one else. I hope journalists will start reading the research reports that are given every quarter in this country and stop calling the EFF the Malema EFF. The research has confirmed undoubtedly that the EFF belongs to educated men and women, that the voters of the EFF are high earners in society, that the EFF as a brand has surpassed the brand Malema, and therefore it has assumed a life of its own. Those of you who thought that you can destroy this organization by associating it with an individual, you have successfully failed. Go and lead our people without fear. Go and lead our people with bravery. Go and lead our people with determination. Do not be scared. The enemy has declared us an enemy number one. We have said to the enemy, we have accepted to be enemy number one. We have accepted the call to the battlefield. Don't be scared of white monopoly capital. Don't be scared of the right wingers. If there is a voting station in the farm, we are going to enter that farm. We are going to be everywhere where a voter is found. All of you, do this with discipline and dedication. The call to action is, let's prepare for Victory Day. Let's make sure that when victory comes, it comes and find prepared people. Because if you are not prepared for Victory Day, you are going to fail, and this work you are going to do will dwindle into nothing. It's useless to mobilize and win elections, and after elections, you don't know what to do with victory. Let's make one point very clear. Do not practice to be a deputy minister, because there won't be deputy ministers in the EFF government, because those positions are useless positions and they waste a lot of money of our people. You want to be anything, prepare to be a minister. You want to be anything, Dr. Ndozi, I don't know, prepare to be a premier in Gauteng. Not anything less than that, because we are going to govern Gauteng whether they like it or not. Gauteng belongs to the EFF, and no any other political party shall govern Gauteng. Comrades, the victory is coming, and that victory is economic freedom in our lifetime. All of you, you only need two things. Do not impress anyone. Do not take the EFF victories to be yours. Do this with humility. Just make sure you carry with you two things: discipline and dedication. Why are you disciplined? Why are you dedicated? I'm preparing for the day after victory. Thank you very much.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king, I think I'm a king,